previous chapter, as you guys may remember, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and he saw a statue that represented his kingdom and the rest of the kingdoms that would come to the earth till the end of times. So Yahweh, and this is key, I hope everybody's listening. Yahweh gives knowledge to the king. Knowledge which he didn't get first, so he had to call Daniel. Well, everybody, but Daniel was the one who interpreted. Daniel tells him that he was King of Kings, and he was the head of gold of that statue. So instead of him feeling humbled by the Almighty and happy and other things, he got pretty much very proud of being the gold and being the head. So he decided to make an image of himself of gold for everybody to worship. So that dream that Yahweh gave him made him, because of his foolishness, I guess, made him rebelled and become a representation of the beast in this chapter. So here in this chapter, Nebuchadnezzar represents the beast. Could be seen as either of the two beasts of Revelation 13, mainly the first beast, which is the world leader. But as we know, the second beast, which is the religious leader, is connected to the first beast, and he has the same authority and all of that. So that's why I made the connection. So Nebuchadnezzar is given a dream. Instead of feeling I don't know, like I said, humbled by the fact that Yahweh gave him such power, he gets all like the leaven, which as I was saying regarding the hypocrisy and what the leaven of the Pharisees represented, that leaven basically entered Nebuchadnezzar and made him grow in pride and other evil characteristics. So he goes and builds a statue, which represents what we see in Revelation 13, that the beast will make an image of himself. However, because of these examples, it is sad that in most Christian doctrines, they end up thinking something very, very close to what literally happened in Daniel 3. So when the scripture in Revelation 13 says that the beast will make an image, they actually think that perhaps it will be an image on the TV for everybody to worship, or that it will be a statue, or that it would be a hologram. And that's it. That's as far as most people go when it comes to thinking of the image of the beast. And I will play something else in a bit. So in Revelation 13:14 it says, in this case it's talking about the second beast, and he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast as Nebuchadnezzar, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast. So the false prophet will tell men to make an image of the world leader, of the world government, which will have a world leader. So, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. So, of the government, of the empire that was wounded to the head and then lived. So, then it says, he was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast. I guess I'll explain this right away. Like I said, when people read image, they think, okay, so it'll be a statue, it'll be a picture, it'll be a video. And then it says, he was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast. Some have gone to a cyborg, perhaps, or artificial intelligence, which it gets closer to the truth, but still is artificial. We see here breath, granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So whoever would not worship the image of the beast is going to be killed when that time comes. The beast will be able to speak. So that's why they say hologram and all the things that I already said. But when we understand that scriptures are interpreted by the scriptures, and only the scriptures interpret scriptures, then we find something even greater or more amazing, I would say. Because the beast is trying to copy everything that the Almighty does. As we know, Elohim made men from the dust of the earth. He formed the body of humans from the dust. And when he did so, he said, "Let us make men in our image and our likeness." And then we see the word image used a lot regarding our bodies, regarding what we see when we see another person. So pretty much image and likeness, body and spirit, in the most literal sense of what that means. Body and spirit. In the spiritual sense would be soul and spirit. But since people cannot see other people's souls other than through their eyes, the literal sense of image has to do with the body. So Yahweh made man as an image. So the human body is an image. Here the beast is going to make an image. So when we use those terms in scriptures, we should understand that it's talking about a human body. Just like they can do nowadays. They can clone. They can make a bunch of other things in a laboratory. So they will make a human body. Because as we know, the human body is the temple of the Most High. That's why Yahushua said, "Destroy the temple and I will raise it up in 3 days," because he was talking about his own body. The body is the temple. That's why Yahushua said, when you see the abomination of desolation in the place where it should not be, meaning the temple, then those who are in Yahudah run to the mountains. So when the spirit of Lucifer enters a human body that will be built for it, that is the moment when Satan entered the temple. And that is the moment of the abomination of desolation and when the chosen few need to run to the mountains. So this is very important. He was granted power to give breath to the image. We see that in Genesis. Yahweh, through Elohim, made the form, the body, which is called in Psalms a golem, the human form made of clay, and then he gave breath to it through his nose, and he became a living soul, Adam. And the first thing he did after becoming a living soul, because of the breath of Yahweh in his nose, was that he started speaking and giving names to all animals. So in Genesis we see Yahweh says, okay, I'm going to make an image. I will give it breath. And then he will speak and give names to the animals, to creation. We see the beast doing the same. The beast will make an image of Satan. Then we'll give it breath. And then that image with breath will start speaking and telling the world that he is Messiah, that he is Christ, that he is God, that he is the Lord. And people will accept him. And if they don't, he will kill them. Like the authority that Adam had when he became a living soul and had all authority over all animals. Not that he should, but he could kill them because of the authority is what I mean. So I'm saying this because the beast will make an image, give it breath, then he will speak and kill anybody of the nations who are represented by animals who doesn't worship him. So that's why it says he was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on the right hand and on the foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark of the name of the beast or the number of his name. The number of his name. So the name of the image of the beast is huge. The name of the false Messiah will be a key point when it comes to how people will be fooled. Unfortunately, sadly, the name of the image of the beast will cause people to fall for it. And the number of the image of the beast, as I'm going to read a little bit more. And that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark of the name. The mark of, or the name, I'm sorry, the mark or the name of the beast. Two things. Some people will worship that supposed mighty one, and they will be part of that society. And then they will have to have a mark. But only through accepting the God of the world and the mark will people be able to be part of society, buy and sell. That's why they are preparing everybody nowadays with the chip. Well, because of the coronavirus, they are preparing everybody to get a mark, a chip, to buy and sell. So that's how close we are to these events. And that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. So we see mark, name, and number of his name as three traps, I would say, in which people will fall at the end of times. And see how two of them have to do with the name. One is the actual name and one is the number of the name, because in Hebrew each letter has a number, so you can add the value of each letter and have a number for the whole name. For instance, the name Yahweh has the value of 26. The name Yahushua has the value 391. The name of the image of the beast has a value of 666, as everybody knows. Verse 18, here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number, meaning let him who has understanding of the Hebrew language and knows that each letter has a value, then he can calculate the number of the name of the beast. So here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. It is the name of a man, because animals don't use numbers, or at least mathematics. So for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. 666. And since we are doing this, just a second. I will. Let's see. Okay, I started it kind of all the way to the side, so hopefully, all right. So here we have Yeshu Notzri, which would be Yeshu from Nazareth, or the Nazarene. Yeshu Notzri. If you write this in the Google translator, you write on the left, you put Hebrew, and on the right English, and you use the keyboard of the Hebrew, which they add to it, and write this Yeshu Notzri, it will translate it as Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is how Google Translator translate this. And if you add each letter, which would be 10, 300, 6, 50, 90, 210, when you add each of those numbers, you get 666. Yeshu Notzri, Jesus Christ, 666. And this is the Jewish, using the Jewish idea of the name, the name that they use. But if you write it a little bit different, using the name Jesus, so if you write in Hebrew, and I do that in one of my books that I'll be posting eventually, and I could also write it here if you guys want at the end, because it has a lot more letters and I don't want to take that much time. But if you write Jesus Christ, Lord and God, or God and Lord Jesus Christ, if you write that, you also get 666. All those, the four titles, Lord, God, Jesus Christ, those four get 666 when you write it in Hebrew. So I have found 4 different ways just in case anybody's asking. 4 different ways to get to 666 using the name Jesus. So I have just said 2. The other 2 are very close to those other, so very, very close the way it is written, because we're using the same names. So it is huge. It should be that the name that people in the world use to refer to the Christ, as they call him, is 666. So now that I just read all of this and pretty much explained what it means, let's go back to Daniel and see how amazing this chapter is. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold, which represents kingdom, and in the negative sense, the kingdom of Babylon, confusion, whose height was 60 cubits and its width 6 cubits. So it was 66, and the image of the beast is 666. So we see that it's exactly the same. The shadow of what we see in the book of Revelation is amazing. It's huge what this represents. Also, the fact that we here see 66, and we are talking about a literal image or statue which had all dimensions. That's why 60 cubits height, 6 cubits width. So that is a three-dimensional image. 66, represented by the 66. So if we were to add an extra dimension to this image, meaning making it real, adding the dimension of time to it, we would have to add another 6 to the number, and that would make it 666. So pretty much Yahweh is showing us through this shadow a one dimension less than the one we see in the book of Revelation 13 and what will happen. So here is a statue, but in Revelation it's talking about an actual person, if we could call it that. An image, a human image, which will have the spirit of Satan in it to control it. As I have explained, also the 666 has to do with the fact that there are 3 Satans who will get together in order to control humanity and, according to them, fight the Almighty. The way they will get together is within the image of the beast, because we have the inclination to do evil within the flesh. That inclination to do evil has to do with the first Satan, Samael, Belial, according to the Jewish people. Well, they also call him Samael. So Samael has to do with the flesh. So Samael will be represented or within the flesh of that image of the beast. Humans, the simplest way in which we can separate what makes a human is in 3: body, soul, and spirit. Even though when it comes to the scriptures and the soul can be divided in 5 different parts, from which we have the spirit as the second: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida. So there are 5 parts to the soul, but we can simplify it in 3 by saying body, soul, and spirit. The body goes to the dust when the person dies. The spirit, which gives the body life, goes to Yahweh who sent it. And the soul, which is the person, goes to Sheol to wait for judgment. So this is important. Body, spirit, and soul. Body goes to the dust, spirit goes up, soul goes down to the Sheol. Right now in Sheol there is a spirit, or a malach, a fallen malach called Azazel, known also as Abaddon, who will come out in the 5th trumpet. Azazel is pretty much the 3rd Satan. Lucifer is the 2nd Satan. Samael is the 1st Satan. And I mean in the order in which they fell. Samael fell before the creation of men. Lucifer fell when he gave the fruit to Eve. And Azazel fell in the time of Enoch. So 3 Satans. And they fell from the favor, but they still have things to do in the creation. So, the flesh is connected to the body. In the body is the inclination to do evil, and that is the 1st Satan, represented by the veil on the face of Moshe, which would be taken out with his death, like the veil of the flesh, which is ripped when a person dies. Then the second Satan, Lucifer, is the spirit which rules over this reality. He is the spirit of the sons of disobedience, those who do not follow Yahweh, who are rebellious. He's the power, the mighty one of this world. So he would be the spirit. So we have flesh and spirit. Lucifer at this time is still in the second heaven. He's about to be kicked out of that heaven and be thrown into the earth in Revelation 12. So just like the spirit of man goes up when he dies, it is from up there that the spirit of the image of the beast will come down and enter the flesh that was made for it in the representation of Samael. So by that flesh, image of the beast, and that breath that will be allowed to be given to the beast, that is the combination of Samael and Lucifer, body and spirit. And then Abaddon, which comes from the abyss in Revelation 9, the fifth trumpet, Abaddon will enter that body and become the soul of it, the person. That's why he is the main representation of the false Messiah. That's why he appears in the Yom Kippur ritual as one of the two male goats, being the other one Yahushua HaMashiach, represented by Yahushua and Barabbas, when Pilate asked who they wanted to free, and they let Barabbas go and sacrifice Yahushua to represent Yom Kippur, when they sacrificed a male goat and left the other one go to the desert to Azazel, or Azazel as some people pronounce it in English. So the beast will be formed by body, spirit, and soul, and that will be Samael, Lucifer, and Azazel, and that will be the false Messiah. That's why 666. Hope that's clear. So I'll continue, and I will try to go faster. At the very end, we'll see the questions. So Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, the kingdom of confusion, whose height was 60 cubits and its width 6 cubits, 66. One extra dimension, 666. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Let's go see for a moment this Dura, the meaning of the name, since the meanings of the names have always a revelation to give us. So in this case, in Daniel 3, let me see. What is happening? It's not giving me the chapter. Alright, Dura, from Aramaic, and means dwelling, a dwelling. Just like the body is the dwelling of the spirit of Yahweh, but they will make an image to be the dwelling of the spirit of Satan. Sorry. Hope that's clear. So that's why he made it there, dwelling, because he was making it. And I'm not saying that in the literal sense he understood what he was doing. Perhaps it was the place, it was the best place found for that type of image. But spiritually, it means that the body is the dwelling of the spirit. This statue is a representation of the image of the beast, which will become the dwelling of the spirit of Lucifer. So he set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. And King Nebuchadnezzar sent a word to gather together the satraps, the administrators, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So this moment is key, because it represents when the beast finally got authority over the whole world through the New World Order. And now he's about to put the cherry on top by making this image and making everybody worship it, confirming that he's Lord over all of them, which represents the middle of the last 7 years, 3 years and a half, 3 years and a half. Right in the middle, the abomination of desolation will manifest. That abomination of desolation is the image of the beast that we see in Revelation 13. So we are in this moment, spiritually, prophetically speaking, in Nebuchadnezzar, in Daniel chapter 3, we are pretty much at the end of the 3 first years, when they kill the 2 witnesses and they present the abomination of desolation. So the chosen few have to run away, not to get killed by the army of the beast that will force them to worship the image and get the mark. Otherwise, they get killed. So this is what is happening. Nebuchadnezzar, as the beast, is calling on all those who work for the government in the New World Order, the government of the world that is about to be set up. He's calling them, all of them. He's calling all of them to make them worship his statue, meaning worshiping him. So the let me see verse. And they stood before the image. I don't know if I read all of that. So, and all the officials of the provinces gathered together for the dedication of the image of the king, of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O people." So imagine, just like I was saying, on a higher dimension, how this will manifest through the whole world, when somebody that will look just like everybody's expecting Jesus to look because of the images that they have made in Christianity, somebody will appear and there will be a body made of flesh, but they will use holograms. As for instance, a lot of us, I think, have heard or read regarding the Project Blue Beam. If not, please go and do so. Project Blue Beam is going to be a weapon that they will use for everybody to end up worshiping the image of the beast. So there will be a human body made of flesh for the spirit of Lucifer. But using that image, they will make a hologram and put it in the clouds in the main cities of the world. So everybody will see that image and will believe that it is the Almighty manifesting. That's why everywhere at the same time, during that moment with the Project Blue Beam, they have the technology to send pretty much thoughts to your mind. It would be a sending audio with the frequency of the human thought. So to people, he will be speaking to their hearts, straight to them through their thoughts. That's how they will take it. And I'm saying all of this because there's enough evidence that exists, that they can do it, and that they have done it in certain places with certain people in different times in history. Well, our close history, like a couple decades, maybe a little bit more, but in the past decades, they have used that technology to fool people into speaking. Like for instance, there's a story about a Muslim who got caught. He was in jail. He was being tortured. He wouldn't speak. He wouldn't speak until they used a hologram, and that hologram entered the prison and claimed to be Allah and told him to speak. And next day he was saying everything because he thought that was Allah appearing to him. So they have used this technology. They were close to use it in Cuba. You can also investigate that. It would be great. There was also a interview in which a person of the government was speaking about it and how they were about to make the second coming of Jesus happen in Cuba to make everybody fall for what they were expecting to do. But that is such a huge event that they decided to not use it until a specific moment in history, which will be when they present the false Messiah. So it's very important. They will use holograms to show that image in the heavens. Then he will appear somewhere in flesh, but first through a hologram in the heavens, in the sky, in the clouds, who will speak to them in their own language, in their heads or hearts, and they will believe that it is the Almighty. That's why it's also written that if Yahweh didn't shorten the days, even the chosen few will be fooled by what will happen, because it will be such an event that if the chosen few are not saved by Yahweh in him shortening the time, they themselves would follow this false Messiah, because it's going to be the best Hollywood show that they have ever made. So Then a herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that at the time you hear the sound of the horn," that's huge, the sound of the horn, because on the seventh horn, the seventh trumpet, the seventh shofar, is when the harvest happens. And then the many who are not harvested will have to die in a 30-day period, mentioned in Hosea 5:7. 5:7 Hosea, 30 days in which the many will have to be killed after the seventh horn or trumpet. So, that at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, which is interesting because instruments are mentioned when it comes to Lucifer, because he was created to make music to worship the Almighty, but then he rebelled against him and wanted all the worship for himself, so he started using music in this reality to get people lost from the way in order to end up worshiping the enemy as the true mighty one. So that's why they use all these instruments, as we see in Ezekiel 28 if you want to, and also shows how they will use sound to manipulate. Because as you guys know, when you watch a movie, you can be watching a horror movie, and if you don't have no volume, if you don't have any volume on the movie, you won't feel the same way as if you have the volume, and therefore the music that they play, which makes you feel like you should be scared, makes you feel like something happened, something's about to go down. Or in happy movies, also, I mean, all movies, they use music to manipulate the emotions and pretty much through the music tell you how you should feel. That's how music works. So that's why they were using music to manipulate the hearts of the people into following it. And I'm not saying that when the false Messiah appears, there will be music played everywhere. It's a possibility, like what people believe Epiphania or a revelation of the heavens should sound like whatever they think, like they have made it in the movies. So it is possible. But the point is that they will use all tools that they may have to manipulate the emotions of the people, as they already know how to, in this specific moment. So, in symphony, with all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. So, the false prophet, pretty much, will tell all the world that that image that just appeared in the sky is Christ, so that everybody should worship it. If not, they will die, because he would be now establishing his king. He would be establishing the kingdom, according to them, on this earth, and choosing the beast as the world leader and the false prophet as the religious leader. So that's why they both will work to make this image in order to control the world, not knowing that that image will end up destroying the world and condemning them also. So whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. This is huge. Fiery furnace. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And we just saw in Revelation 13 that it says, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name, meaning that worships it. If somebody doesn't worship the image, they will be killed, taken out of society. And there are other parts in Revelation that show it a little bit clearer, but I want to continue with Daniel. I guess everybody knows about the mark of the beast and what that will mean regarding those who don't have it will be killed, that's for sure. And Satan, the image, will be telling everybody and threaten them with the lake of fire, pretty much telling them that if they don't worship him, they will be sent to hell or the lake of fire. So there are two things here. One is that the false Messiah will appear and tell everybody, if you don't worship me, you will go to the lake of fire. You will be thrown in the fiery furnace. And that's why a lot of people, because of fear, they will end up getting the mark and worshiping that image. Because of fear. And Yahweh told us, do not fear. Do not fear. we should fear only Yahweh. Because if we fear Yahweh, we won't fear anything. Not Satan, not the lake of fire, not hell. Because all those things were creations of our Father, the Almighty, whom we fear, and therefore shouldn't fear anything else. One thing is that they will, the image will threaten everybody with the lake of fire if they don't worship him. So many people will do it because of fear. The other thing is that whoever doesn't do it, they will kill him. However, that will be best, because those who are killed will receive an option to enter the millennium or eternity. If they don't accept the mark, they will still have one shot during Judgment Day to enter. And rejecting the image of the beast and its mark will be a good plus for that judgment. So I'm not saying that everybody who gets killed will enter definitely, because there are many reasons why that would happen or how that would happen. So, and whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast immediately into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. So at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the horn, flute, harp, and lyre, and symphony, with all kinds of music, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the gold image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So the whole world, look how it says, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the gold image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. The same as nowadays when there will be a new world order, and there are many languages, but they will all accept that new world order. Many nations, many peoples. So, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the gold image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans, Babylonians, which represent those evil ones, of course, the people who serve the beast, the Yahudim, they spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, in symphony with all kinds of music, shall fall down and worship the gold image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews, there are certain Yahudim, whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not paid due regard to you. They do not serve your Elohim or worship the gold image which you have set up. This is huge for many reasons. First, Daniel doesn't appear anywhere. Why? According to the historical account, he had been sent on an errand by the king and wasn't present at this moment, so they didn't mention him. And if that is so, Yahweh made it happen, of course, because this chapter had to be written this way in order for us to understand the prophetical shadow that is being pretty much what is showing us for the end times. And I will explain a little bit more in a moment. Second, the fact that they are called by their Babylonian names, which shows that they are representing people who do not refer to Yahweh through his name, but decided to use the name that Babel uses or has given them to use. Also shows how these people were snitches, like many people nowadays. And when I say that, I mean informants. Yahweh does not like that. So and that's why the enemy loves it, and he uses what people call, like I just said, snitch, rats, informants, all of that. Those people are basically betraying when they are doing that, informing. So they are not righteous people. When a person acts that way, they are not acting righteous. Yahweh knows all things. He takes care of all things. We shouldn't be the ones coming to him and telling him, oh, do you know that this person is a liar and a murderer? You should kill him. What I mean by that is that we must always look for mercy when it comes to our prayers to the Most High, even when we are hurt. or at least help us to not get hurt, but we shouldn't be looking for the pain or destruction of others, as these people were doing, which is just like many people do nowadays through their prayers, their religions, their hearts, and all of that. So it said, and whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Yahudim whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babel. So they were jealous that these three Yahudim were so important, more important than them, and they were not doing this. There are certain Yahudim whom you have set up over the affairs, whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not paid due regard to you. They do not serve your Elohim or worship the gold image which you have set up. So this represents, as I have said before, Daniel and his three friends represent the few and the many. The number one always represents the few because they are one body, 144,000 who are one body. The many are represented by the number 3 for several reasons. Like, well, the 4 makes the 4 corners of the earth. So when we take the 1 out, we have 3 left. Just like the 4 letters of the name Yahweh, you take the Yud, which is the beginning, out, the one that is floating in the heavens, the few, and then you have 3 letters which represent the many, and many other reasons, I repeat. So the number 3 represents the many who will have to die once they do not accept the mark of the beast, after they have rejected the doctrine of the 2 witnesses. So that's why Daniel is not found in this chapter, because he represents the chosen few, who by this time, when the image is presented to the world, the chosen few, as Yahushua told them, when you see the abomination of desolation, go to the mountains. So the chosen few will have fled when the image was set up. So when the informants of the beast come to him with that information regarding who is not worshiping the image, they will only be able to talk about the many, because they won't find the few. They won't find Daniel, so they will have to talk about the many, his 3 friends, whom they will find in their houses, most of them, or jobs. That's why Yahushua said, go to the mountains, because that night 2 will be in one house, 1 will be taken, and 1 will be left. 2 will be in the field, 1 will be taken, and 1 will be left. To Christians, that is the rapture. And yeah, there will be a rapture, but by the beast, who will take those who do not worship him, just like he took these 3 friends of Daniel. If you read the whole context of that chapter, of Matthew 24, Luke 17, and Mark 13, you will see that there are 3 people. One who goes to the mountains, he gets saved. One who's taken, he gets killed. One who is left, he gets the mark of the beast, and therefore will be thrown in the lake of fire when judgment comes. So, verse 13. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, because he represents the beast, rage itself, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they brought these men before the king. That is the moment when 1 will be taken and 1 will be left. They brought these men before the king because they were taken from wherever they were at. And just because of that, I'll go to Luke for a moment. Luke 17, because this is a huge issue with the Christian doctrine. And I know certain people may think that I just have an issue with Christianity or Christians, but that's not the case. It's the doctrine that bothers me, because it is taking a lot of people down a wrong path. In Luke 17, let me see, where will I start reading? Well, yeah, I will read real fast from verse 22, and I will try to explain it so that you get what I'm trying to say. Then he said to the disciples, the days will come when you will desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and you will not see it. And they will say to you, look here or look there. This, look here or look there, is the moment when the abomination of desolation will appear, here or there, through the Project Blue Beam. So, and they will say to you, look here or look there. Do not go after them or follow them. to go and worship that image of the false Messiah that will appear. For as the light, this is an issue with this translation. I will read it as it is here, because in most translations, well, most common translations, it will appear this way, but then I will explain how that is wrong. For as the lightning that flashes out of one part under heaven shines to the other part under heaven, so also the Son of Man will be in his day. Day here is key, because when you read the same event that Yahushua is talking about here in Matthew 24 and Mark 13, you see that it says like the lightning that goes from the east to the west. And as we know, lightning does not go from east to west. It just goes from wherever it hits to all parts, all directions, from that center where the lightning falls. So when you go to the concordance, what they translate as lightning is actually splendor, a light, but not of thunder necessarily. So that's why it says like a light that comes from the east and goes to the west. The only light that follows that order, that direction, is the light of the sun. That's why it says the Son of Man in his day. In his day. Because he comes, as it says in Malachi 4:2, he comes as the Son of Righteousness. The Son of Righteousness. That's why he comes as the light that comes from the east and goes all the way to the west, because Yahweh said that just as he manifested in the east, he would do in the west, so that the whole world would know that the name of Yahweh is Yahweh instead of all the falsehood that people invoke and worship. So just here there is an issue. They write lightning. Why? Because Yahushua said that he saw Satan fall like lightning. So now they switch the manifestation of the Son of Man, which is the light of the sun, the Son of Righteousness. They switched it with lightning, so that they only think as a moment. So they connect this with the blink of an eye. So they say that this is the harvest, the rapture, but it's not the case. They are confusing things because of wrong translations. So for as the lightning that flashes out of one part under heaven shines to the other part, that is from the east to the west. So it should say, for as the light that comes out of one part under heaven and shines to the other part under heaven, so also the Son of Man will be in his day. But first he must suffer many things and be rejected by this generation, both Yahushua's generation and this generation, because Yahushua's generation rejected him and John the Baptist. This generation will reject the two witnesses of Revelation 11 before everything happens. That's why Yahushua said this in this exact moment. Then it says, and as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be also in the days of the Son of Man. So Noah was preaching on earth, building an ark. That's what the last will do. The witness like Moshe, as Noah, will be preaching that the end is coming, but people won't hear him. So then he will enter with his family, the 144,000, into the ark, which is the prepared place of Revelation 12, and the end will come. So, and as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be also in the days of the Son of Man. They ate, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. They won't know, even though there are so many signs, people don't see them, or see them but ignore them because they are afraid of what is coming. Likewise, as it was also in the days of Lot. Lot represents the chosen few. His wife represents the many. Lot was in Sodom and Gomorrah when two Malachim came, entered Sodom and Gomorrah, grabbed him and took him out of Sodom and Gomorrah, and then destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Those two Malachim represented two witnesses who come to give the true doctrine to the chosen few, who go behind them to save their lives in the second Exodus. But Lot's wife is as the many who won't listen to the two witnesses, so they will have to die as she became salt. So, but it says, likewise, as it was also in the days of Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. So just like water destroyed the whole earth in the time of Noah, now it will be with fire. So like Noah, the whole world, but like Lot, with fire. Noah, one man preaching. Lot, 2 men came for the chosen, the 2 witnesses. So, even so will it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. So, check it out. And I chose Luke because when it comes to this part that I'm about to explain, it is the one that is written in the simplest way to explain this point that I'm about to explain. But this is also found in Matthew if you read it carefully, and in Mark 13. So in that day, what day? When they say the Messiah is here, the Messiah is there, and Yahushua said, do not go there. So now he's saying, in that day, when they say that the Messiah has appeared in the sky, in Jezreel, in the clouds, whatever, in that day, he who is on the housetop and his goods are in the house, let him not come down to take them away. And likewise, the one who is in the field, let him not turn back, meaning go away like Lot did. Do not even go back to get anything. Yahweh will take care of you. That going back to get your sweater or whatever could become the moment when they will come and get you. So just go away. Do not turn back, like Lot's wife. So it says, and likewise, the one who is in the field, let him not turn back. Remember Lot's wife. Remember what happened to Lot's wife. She turned back and she died. Whoever seeks to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life will preserve it. Which is amazing when we connect it to what the world is living right now with the coronavirus. A lot of people are so afraid of the corona. They are not living like they used to. So they are trying to save their lives, fearing death, Satan, the virus, what the news say, instead of fearing Yahweh. So people are looking to save their lives, and because of that are listening to the government, who will end up giving them the mark of the beast. So he who tries to save his life according to what the system tells them will lose it. But he who gives his life according to what the system is saying will gain it. So whoever seeks to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life will preserve it. I tell you, in that night, what night? The night of the day when the chosen few fled. So the chosen few fled without looking back, like Lot. And that moment, later on, the army of the beast will come looking for them, as it did for the 3 friends of Daniel. So Daniel represents the one who fled. The 3 friends of Daniel represent those who didn't flee. So it says, I tell you, in that night, there will be 2 men in one bed. One will be taken and the other one will be left. So Christians just use this verse and say that's the rapture. But what happened with the person who left and actually listened to Yahushua? This person who is being taken because he didn't listen to Yahushua, because he didn't do what Lot did. So it is a bad thing that they are taken. Just in the context, as we have been seeing it, we can see that it is bad. But for some reason, Christians teach that this is the best part because they will be taken to heaven. And that is not the case. It says, I tell you, in that night there will be 2 men in one bed. One will be taken and the other will be left. 2 women will be grinding together. The one will be taken and the other left. 2 men will be in the field. The one will be taken and the other left. So there were 3 in the field. There were 3 in the house. 1 fled, 2 were left. 1 fled, 2 were left. When those 2 were left, somebody came, took one, and left the other. So those who fled, listen to Yahushua, they are fine. Those who were left are in the worst case scenario because they accepted the mark of the beast. But then there is one who was taken. And that's why the disciples asked about this. And they say, verse 37, and they answered and said to him, where, sovereign? Where will they be taken? Because the one that fled is fine. The one that was left is basically condemned. But what happened with those who are taken? So they asked him, where, sovereign? So he said to them, wherever the dead body is, and you can see it in case your translation doesn't say dead body, you can see in Matthew 24 that it says dead body, or you can look in the concordance that it is talking about a dead body. So he said to them, wherever the dead body is, there the vultures will be gathered together. When we read it like that, we understand. So they will be killed, and their dead bodies, because they will be many, will attract the vultures of the heavens. So when you see a bunch of vultures, that's where their bodies will be. That's what Yahushua is saying. Depending on the translation, it may say eagles, because they are cousins of the vultures. But as we know, eagles don't eat carcasses. Those are the vultures. If you go to the concordance, you will see that it should say vultures, just like it should say dead bodies, where it says just bodies. So the fact that it doesn't say vultures, it says eagles. The fact that it doesn't say in certain translations dead body, it just says body. Christians believe that it's talking about the body of the church, who will be given wings of eagles. So that's how they connected the body and the eagles. Because in Revelation 12 we see that the chosen few who fled are given the wings of the eagle to go away from the presence of the serpent into their prepared place. So they confuse several interpretations, several verses, and come up with the rapture interpretation, which is completely wrong, as we just saw. Hope that's clear. And if any questions, please put them, write them on the chat, and I will see them soon. I know it's an important subject, and this is an important chapter, so that's why I'm taking all this time. So I will continue. So he was saying, then, verse 13 of Daniel, then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they brought these men before the king. They brought these men just like they're going to take some and take them before the beast. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my Elohim or worship the gold image which I have set up? They will ask him, so you're not accepting the Messiah? You're not accepting Christ who appeared in the sky? Are you sure? They will put people in such a position that they will feel like they should and must accept the mark in that Messiah. So that's why we need to be clear about this before that happens. Because anybody who is not clear about what he or she believes will be fooled by the false Messiah. So Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my Elohim or worship the gold image which I have set up? Now, if you are ready, at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, in symphony, with all kinds of music, and you fall down and worship the image which I have made, good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is the Elohim who will deliver you from my hands? Look the position in which he's placing them, because it's such from Nebuchadnezzar, this is so hypocritical, because Nebuchadnezzar wasn't able to receive the interpretation for his dream through all the Chaldeans, magicians, astrologers, etc. He got the interpretation from the Elohim of Daniel and these three men. So Nebuchadnezzar, deep in his heart, knew that there is an Elohim greater than his, and the one that the image represented. However, he was blinded by his pride and basically claimed that he was the only one, and he was the representation on earth of that Elohim of his, Nebo, or Bel. Bel, Baal, Lord. So he thought he was the Lord in the flesh, Bel. Now, let's see. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is the Elohim who will deliver you from my hands? So he's asking them, basically, like the beast will fool the many by telling them there is no other Elohim other than Jesus. There is no other God other than Jesus. Who is going to save you from death? Once Jesus appears in the sky and they don't accept Jesus, they will tell them, so who is going to save you? Jesus is the only one who can save you. So that question will make them basically question their decision and think, what if he's the real one? What if he's the Messiah? They always told us his name was Jesus. They always told us he looked like this. And so the beast pretty much will give them that last opportunity in which they will be very confused unless they have their belief clear in their hearts and minds according to what is written in scriptures. And who is the Elohim who will deliver you from my hands? So it's as if Jesus appeared in this earth and told everybody, who can save you if not me? Who can save you if not me? If you don't worship me, I will kill you. And many people will end up getting the mark because of a statement like this. Because of the manipulation of the emotions that pastors in Christianity and other religions continuously manipulate on the people. So then the biggest manipulator of all will fool humanity into worshiping him. Unfortunately, sadly, prophesied. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our Elohim, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. So these three men, which represent the many, represent obviously the many who will be justified. Because obviously there will be many who won't be, because at that time they will end up accepting the mark. So the three friends of Daniel represent the many who will reject all falsehood when it's too late for them to be able to enter without dying. So the few will accept the two witnesses, the many won't. But once the two witnesses are killed, the many will realize that they were right. The two witnesses were right. So they will say, okay, now we have to do what they said. But it's too late because they are killed already. So they will have to give their own lives because they did not accept the life of the two witnesses which were given through their sacrifices, as the 144,000 did, and therefore enter without experiencing death. So, let me see. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our Elohim whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. So they will be willing to die, knowing that Yahweh will justify them after death and raise them up as if they never had been killed. Rectified with the true name, as we see in Revelation 7, when they will finally accept that the salvation only comes from Yahweh Elohim. So the three friends of Daniel represent those who will have to die and will be willing when it is too late for them to enter without dying. He will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, which is very important, we must be willing to give our life for Yahweh. As a matter of fact, it is my belief for several reasons that the 144,000 all actually are willing to give their lives, and that is why Yahushua doesn't let them give their lives and doesn't allow them to experience death, while the many are trying to save their lives. And by trying to save their lives through emotion, manipulation, false doctrines, end up rejecting the two witnesses and therefore have to die at the end in order to be justified. So, but if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your Elohim, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up. So at that time, the many will say, we will not worship God, even though we had done it before. We will not worship Jesus and that image which you created, which you made, because the many by that time will already understand what that is because of Revelation 13, the explanation of the two witnesses, of course. Then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face changed. So we see there how he was trying to agonize and manipulate them with a good face, telling them, why are you going to worship my Elohim? He's the only Elohim, worship him. When they said they wouldn't do it, his face changed to his reality, evil. Then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face changed toward Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. So he was so angry that he asked for the furnace to be heated 7 times more than usually. 7 times, meaning, 7 represents completion. It shows how by this moment we had entered already at that time the 7th millennium, which starts on the 6th seal, the year 6000, on the 6th seal. At that time, the 7th millennium starts. 7 months later, they kill the 2 witnesses. Few days later, the 30 days of killing the many will start. And that is why at the very beginning of the last millennium, the 7th millennium, the beast will start killing the many. And that's why the number 7 appears here, among other things also. Like the 7 last plagues that will begin during the Great Tribulation, the second half of the last 7 years. So the 7 bowls of wrath. And he spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. And he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. So those coats, trousers, turbans, and other garments represent the body, because the body is for the soul as the clothing for our body. So bodies are represented by the clothing. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So it was so strong that it killed those who were trying to kill the many, which shows how those who kill the many will end up being condemned for it and being punished for killing the many. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. So that represents that they will be actually killed. When they fall down into the furnace, represents that they die and go to Sheol, where the souls go. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and once again I repeat, look how even when it is not mentioning the Babylonians speaking about them, but is Yahweh speaking about them, the name Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are mentioned, because that represents that they did not give honor to the Hebrew name, the real name, as they should, and that's why they had to die, represented by the fact that they used the Babylonian names. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?" This is huge. So Nebuchadnezzar gets all scared and goes and asks his counselors, "But didn't we throw 3 men into the fire?" He was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king." "Look," he answered, "I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the son of Yahweh." Well, like the son of El. That is huge, amazing, powerful. First of all, it's a saying, once the many, the 3 friends, died, they will gather with the 144,000 once they are resurrected, of course, as we see in Revelation 7 and Revelation 14. The few as the kings and priests, and the many as the people who will serve the kingdom, the nation of the kingdom. There will be one sheepfold, as we see in John 10. They will have one shepherd, one mighty one name, as we see in Zechariah 14:9. And in that day, Yahweh will be one, and his name one. So it represents that the name Yahweh is finally completed, because there are 4 men, 4 letters. The congregation of Yahweh is completed from the four corners of the earth. The many are gathered with the few in the prepared place after they die. And also the fact that once the many give their lives for the true Elohim after rejecting the false Messiah, they will be killed. But once they are killed, they will be immediately in the presence of Messiah, the true Messiah. So they will receive that honor of finally seeing the Messiah, the true Messiah. Let me see this in Aramaic, verse 25. It says, Damei lebar elahin. Damei meaning his likeness, which is very interesting because, the way it is Aramaic, Damei, which is connected to likeness in Hebrew. But in this case, Damei is written Dalet Mem Hey. Let's see. Dalet Mem Hey, which would be this. And I want to make sure you understand it's Aramaic, not Hebrew. This would be Damei, which is very interesting because this is the door. Yahushua said, I am the door. And this is the first letter of David, the king. Yahushua is the root of David. The last is the branch of David. So this letter connects to both, first and last. That's why this letter is twice found in the name David. Starts with this letter, ends with this letter. So the first letter of David represents the root of David. The last letter of David represents the branch of David. And the middle letter of David is the Vav, which represents the man himself, the son of man, the King David, the first and last second coming, and how the root and the branch are connected through the stem, pretty much. So Damei, and this is Ma in Hebrew, Ma, which means what, how, which, Ma. Just like me in Hebrew means who. So me is who, Ma is what. The who represents Yahushua, who shows us who is Yahweh. And the Ma, the what, represents the second coming, who shows us what is the true doctrine, which is the true Messiah, how to get to Yahweh through the way Yahushua HaMashiach. So this represents the last. So it's very interesting because he's saying, finally, by this moment, the last will have gone through the door, and therefore the many will see him face to face and accept him as Messiah. In Hebrew, it says, Damei levar elahin. Bar in Aramaic is son. That's why Barabbas means the son of the Father. That's why they presented him right next to Yahushua, who is the actual son of the Father. But the Aramaic Bar represents how the language got twisted and his name changed. And through that name change, through Babel, people will end up accepting Barabbas instead of Yahushua. They will accept the son of the mighty one of this world instead of the son of the creator of all things. So this is very important. This is huge for several reasons. So look, he answered, I see 4 men walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the form of the fourth is like the son of Yahweh. Well, Bar Elahim, as written in Aramaic. So that shows that Messiah, Yahushua, appeared and saved them at that moment. Historically speaking, Yahushua appeared and saved the 3 friends of Daniel. But that represents how the many, once they die for rejecting the false Messiah, will have the honor to see the true Messiah. And will therefore gather with the chosen few who didn't have to experience death, and will finally become a kingdom, who will rule over the four corners of the earth. That's why 4 men in that fire. Verse 26. Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke, saying, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High Elohim, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came from the midst of the fire, representing resurrection. They came back. And the satraps, administrators, governors, and the king's counselors gathered together, and they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. On whose bodies the fire had no power, meaning the fire of Satan has no power over those who accept the true Messiah and are willing to die for him. So that is why if we fear Yahweh, we shouldn't fear Satan. We shouldn't fear hell, because Yahweh will protect us from all those creations. Even if we deserve them, once we accept Messiah, we are forgiven. Once we live our lives according to what he told us, then he guides us to his kingdom instead of to the fire. So, and they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair on their head was not singed, nor were their garments affected, and the smell of fire was not on them. So they were pretty much in a bubble, and they were not affected by the fire. So Yahweh makes sure that the fire did not touch them. Pretty much is like saying that when they fell in the fire, Yahweh switched their dimension to a different dimension in which there was no fire. So they were in the same space as the fire of this dimension, but were not affected because we're in a different dimension, in a different reality, the same space. In this reality there was fire, in that reality no fire, so that's why they were not affected. Also, it's interesting that their garments were not affected, but they were bound, and they were loosened when they fell there. So they were bound, and then they were let me see where it said, I see 4 men loose walking in the midst. So they had their hands and feet tied, but when they fell, they were loosened. So that represents the sins of the flesh that once they die will be taken away, so that they are loosened. But their garments will not be affected, because they will be washed in the blood of Messiah, and therefore they will be able to resurrect, as we see in Revelation 7. They wash their clothing, their garments, in the blood of Messiah, and that's why they are justified. But they were bound, and they were loose then. So that shows how the sin binds us. And some people, those who do not accept Messiah, in order to be loosened from those bonds, they will be freed from those bonds until they are killed. So that's why this happened this way. I hope that is clear. If not, just write your question on the chat. I'll read them pretty soon. So the smell of fire was not on them. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, Blessed be the Elohim of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his malach. His malach. That shows, and well, I said Yahushua because of the Son of Man and everything that we just said, but because of the fact that I explained how the Dalet and the May represented the last, as in the last Ma coming through the door, Yahushua, then we could understand that it was the Malach Mikael. It was Mikael who is the second coming of Yahweh on earth, who is the messenger of Yahushua HaMashiach. At the end times, well, at the end of everything, first and last will become one. That's why it's not a contradiction nor a wrong statement to say that that was Yahushua with them, nor to say that that was Mashiach with them. Hope I'm not confusing anybody. The point is that it was Mashiach the last. It was Michael who will manifest as the second manifestation of Yahweh on earth. So that's why it says, who sent his angel. And let me see real quick in Aramaic. Malachei, which is very close to Malach, who sent his Malach. And as we know, Yahweh's Malach, actually, well, Yahweh sent, because Malach means envoy or messenger. Yahweh sent Messiah. Messiah sent Michael. So one could say that Michael is the Malach of Yahushua and Yahushua the Malach of Yahweh. So that's why there is no contradiction, because at the end, both first and last are one, as the word and the voice, two manifestations of the same thought of the Most High, which is his Ruach. So Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, Blessed be the Elohim of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his Malach and delivered his servants who trusted in him. So Yahweh, through the last, will gather the few and then resurrect the many by the power given by Yahushua. So, who sent his Malach and delivered his servants who trusted in him. And they have frustrated the king's word. This is huge. So the king himself is admitting that he made a mistake, and that what Yahweh did through these three men made him look bad, because it says, and they have frustrated the king's word. The king's word. But he had made an image. What do you mean, word? The word to worship the image, yes. But one could say that the image of Nebuchadnezzar was his word, because as we know, the image of Yahweh is his word, Yahushua. Yahushua is the word through whom everything was made, as written in John 1. So Yahushua is the word, who is the image of Yahweh. That's why Yahushua told Philip, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. That's why Yahweh said to Yahushua, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. So the word of Yahweh is his son Yahushua, who happens to be his image. So the image of Yahweh is his word. Is the same thing. So now Nebuchadnezzar, after all this, after telling them worship the image, they don't worship it. Yahweh saves them. Nebuchadnezzar says they have frustrated the word of the king, because the word of the king of the world is the false Messiah, whom the world will accept, but it will end up being frustrated by the truth once the abomination of desolation itself is thrown in the lake of fire. So, and deliver his servants who trusted him, and they have frustrated the king's word, and they yielded their bodies. They gave their bodies, like the many will have to yield their bodies, that they should not serve nor worship any god except their own Elohim, that they should not serve nor worship any mighty one except their own mighty one. Therefore, I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against the Elohim of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, like for instance any language in which they use a name that actually makes Yahweh jealous, or any name that is pretty much an offense to the Most High, is a fulfillment of what we are seeing here. So even though a person may say that they believe in scriptures and believe in the Almighty Creator, if they say a different name, they are making clear by that name that that is not the same mighty one that created the whole world. What I mean by that is that within Hinduism, they have thousands of gods. One which creates, for instance, one which preserves, and one which destroys. Those three actually are Samael, Lucifer, and Azazel. But they have one, Brahma, as the creator. Just because one person says that he worships the creator doesn't mean that he worships the true creator. Because if they say Brahma, then we know he's a different one and he's an idol. The same goes for any other name that is not the true name, even if they have the Bible under their arm. So, therefore I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against the Elohim of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made an ash heap. It is interesting. Ash heap is one of the meanings of the name Ephraim, double ash heap, double portion. But when it comes to ash heap, connected to that name, is interesting because Ephraim is the name that mainly represents the many, like the three friends. So since they gave their lives in order to get them back in resurrection, being justified, then anybody who accepted the false name, the false Messiah, will be eventually cut in pieces and become an ash heap in the fire in which they will be thrown, the lake of fire. So, their houses shall be made an ash heap, because there is no other Elohim who can deliver like this. There is no other Elohim, because there is only one Elohim, and that is Yahweh. Yahweh Echad. Deuteronomy, where it says Yahweh is one. Yahweh Echad. Verse 30. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babel. So when the many are killed, then they are resurrected, and because of the fact that they gave their lives, they will be given a position of authority over all the nations of the world. Just like the few will receive an authority over the many. So the few over the many over the nations. So the many, after dying, will receive an important place in eternity for being willing to give their lives in such a key moment. Have you seen the new king of England who says he's the Messiah, and that COVID was made for him to honor him? He also says that there is three Jesus. No, I haven't seen it. Not sure I understood, but I'll have to look into it. The new king of England? No, I haven't. Okay. I think I know what you're talking about, but that's the title that he uses, but he ain't anything. He says he's the second coming of Jesus. If so, I believe I have seen it, and it's sad to see that there are people following him. If it's the same one that we're talking about, I'm not sure if it's the same one, but I believe it is. He has a shield and everything, kind of long hair, old guy. I believe I've seen it, but I guess there's no question other than that. Let me see. Masoud says, why does the prayer of Daniel's friends only appear in the Greek version? Good question. And yeah, now that you say that, it would be nice to read it, huh? Well, in the Greek version, well, there are different opinions, of course. The thing is that in the Greek version, there are 2 extra chapters in the book of Daniel, which I guess we'll read them when we get there. But in this chapter, they also add a prayer made by their friends, by Daniel's friends. So there are different opinions. Some would say that they were added when they translated it to the Greek, but I'm more of the opinion that they actually, the Jewish people, the Pharisees, took them out for whatever reasons they thought. But if we read them, we could find some of those reasons. Through what they said, we would figure out perhaps certain of the reasons why they took them out. Let me see. But yeah, it's kind of like the Catholic people, they took out some books of the Bible. Christians took some books also out of the Bible, which are found in the Catholic Bible. And the Jewish people took Enoch out, and these chapters of Daniel, stuff like that. So it is something, unfortunately, that scribes do. They take out words from the scriptures, and that's why they will be punished. But yeah, there are several opinions or reasons why. It says here, verse 18 uses kum for setup, referring to the image. That is very interesting. Verse 18, let me go check it out for a second. Hakeimta, which kind of has the root of kum. So yeah, it's interesting because it shows how is in the end times when the last will be standing up, and how they will build up this image. They will create this image of the beast, to fool the people to accept the false Messiah instead of the true manifestation of Yahweh on earth at that moment, which will come, as represented by that word and the dream of Joseph. Then he says here, how could Nebuchadnezzar make the comparison of the fourth man as the son of Elohim? He saw something basically amazing. Like, for instance, like when Yahushua transfigured his appearance and the three disciples that were with him saw him in a honor state, kind of like that, to the sight of men was so amazing to look at this person that was with those three men in the furnace, that he said, the way I can describe this man is as if he was the son of the Most High, because of the power that can be seen, pretty much. And just because he wasn't there when they threw them, and because he was the one that was keeping them from the fire. What reference did he take to make this comparison if he did not know the Almighty? Yeah, he did not know the Almighty, but he believed in the Mighty One. He believed that his Mighty One was the Almighty. That's the problem. Like nowadays, people believe that God is the Almighty. They believe that the Lord is the Almighty. But they will realize that there is one above that one who created those. And that is the point. He realized that there was one greater than the one he was worshiping. And that person that was saving the three friends of Daniel happened to be the representation of that creator, since he was saving them and not saving Nebuchadnezzar, for instance. So Nebuchadnezzar realized that there was an Elohim greater than his own, which he should know already because of Daniel. But anyways, he realized that there was a different Elohim greater than his own, and that Elohim has sent his malach to guard them. Which is interesting through the whole chapter is that malach happened to be his son also. So we see the connection between the first as the son and the last as the malach, who becomes the firstborn, as Yahweh promised him in the Psalms. Then he says, no doubt, Mazul. Why was the man of Nebuchadnezzar consumed first by the fire? Is there more meaning to it? It's to show that the fire was so strong, because some people may say, oh, maybe it was just a little fire and that's why they didn't get burned. But the fact that the people that got close to it got burned by it, and the person that was thrown in it didn't get burned, shows that it was a huge fire that burned even those that got close to throw people in it. It shows that they will be condemned for killing the many believers on earth who will be killed. Those who kill them will be punished, and that's what it represents, how their own fire, their own kingdom will become their own destruction.